What's your biggest concern of a one player heading into the July camp with the Eagles? One player that you're concerned about heading into the July training camp. One guy. Who is he? One guy. Morrow. You guys are right. Nakobe Dean. He's my biggest concern. You guys are right. Yale says Carter. Okay. That's more so kind of like off the field, maybe. Could be some on the field. Morrow isn't even guaranteed to make the team. I forget who said it, but someone said he didn't get 1 cent of guaranteed money. I think Gary Cobb said that. He didn't get 1 cent of guaranteed money. By the way, next week, I think Tuesday, Seth Joyner's joining us. So Seth's going to step in with us. We're going to talk to him about everything that he's seen so far this offseason. So Seth is in Nashville at his speaking engagement, or he would have done it today, but he's coming on next week with us. So we're going to talk to him. That'll be next week. Man, it is Nakobe Dean for me. Do you know the problem? Here, let me give you my fair assessment of him. And this is my evaluation. If somebody said, Sills, put down a little small synopsis of what you think of this player. 1 year into his pro career, give me a Nakobe Dean synopsis on what you think of him. I would say this. Undersized. Seems to have a lot of knowledge of the game. Doesn't really make a lot of false steps. In the limited action that I saw him, I saw a few, but not enough to make me think that he doesn't understand fits. My question will be durability. And I think that leads to health. I haven't seen him enough to cover backs out of the backfield or tight ends. I don't think, see, to me, I believe that Nakobe Dean is an absolute mismatch in today's NFL when it comes to covering tight ends. It's a physical mismatch. He's a little dude. That guy's not covering Travis Kelce. That's not happening. So you're limited there in how, like, here would be something that I would say on him. I don't know. He's a 3-down linebacker. Now, if you're going to play him, this goes into what Tone asked me. As of today, based off the newly added personnel, what do you predict the defensive scheme will be and who will be in the highlight of players? I think this goes right into this and how you look at Dean. Dean might be actually the centerpiece of this whole thing. Are you going to play him inside or outside? Because if you play him outside, he's got to cover backs, wide side of the field, tight ends, and I think he's limited just in his physical presence. Like, Nakobe Dean's not covering Dallas Goedert. He's not covering him. That is absolutely not happening. A 6'6" guy versus a 6-foot guy, 205 pounds versus 275. Dude, you're not covering that man. I don't care what kind of athlete you are. Physically, you can't cover that guy. And with the tight end, you're not covering Travis Kelce. He'll eat you up. And Kansas City would probably isolate him. Dean, dude, if I was Patrick Mahomes and I saw Nakobe Dean on Travis Kelce, I'd go there every play. Because there's not a chance in hell he's covering him. There's not a chance. Okay? Here's where and how I would play him, though. And this goes into what Tone asked. With the limited linebackers that you do have, and until June 1, they may go out and they may find a guy. They may put a guy in there. They may find maybe C.J. Mosley gets released. Okay? They may do that. Yeah, but Yale, he can't cover the guy in Baltimore either. I mean, he can't cover those guys. I'm not sure he could cover the guy in Miami or Dallas. He's a little dude. So this is how I would play on him. I'd play him more, and I would come up with a scheme. This is something here where Jonathan Gannon could not come up with. You got to play him kind of like a Tampa 2 guy. You got to play him more like a Tampa 2. What does that mean when you're playing a Tampa 2 linebacker? You got to play him more off the ball. You got to have him deeper, take deeper drops. Derek Brooks wasn't the biggest guy. Now, Derek's a little bigger, 6'2". I think when Brooks came out of Florida State, he may have been 6'1", 6'2", 205. He was a little dude too. And so Tony Dungy and Mike Tomlin, who's the other guy that was in the building in there? Lovey. And there was one more guy, the old Arizona State coach. All those guys were the defensive coaches. Who was the Arizona State guy? Herm Edwards. All those guys were on the Bucs staff when they were coming up with this Tampa 2 scheme. And Monty Kiffin was the D-line front seven coach. Okay? They had undersized linebackers too. I can't remember that kid's name. I think he works in the Bucs personnel now. He's a former Georgia linebacker. He was a little – Gino – oh, he may have passed away here recently. What was that guy's name? Gino played at Georgia. He was another kind of guy that was an undersized guy. But what they did was they dropped these guys deeper because they knew that they needed more help in covering those tight ends. So what did they do? How did they cover great tight ends like Novacek and those guys? They let them get their catches. But what they didn't let them do, they didn't let them become game breakers. Okay? Geno Hayes, that's it. They had Geno Hayes and Derek Brooks. These are undersized backers. Really, I mean, the guy who was their big center fielder was John Lynch. That's the key to having a guy like Nakobe on your team. There's two things that have to happen. The D tackles in front have to play great. Got to stop the run. Keep those guys off those undersized backers. That's why it's essential this year to make sure the Eagles stop the run. More so than even a year ago, because Edwards could take on the big power game. He could take that on. He wasn't great in covering tight ends. That's why there was always a hole. The key to this is going to be, can that kid Brown that they drafted turn into a headhunter like John Lynch? Because you're going to have to drop Nakobe Dean, and Dean can't get up in a guy's face like Kelsey or Goddard or any of the big tight ends in the NFL and the tight end position is becoming a key component on moving the sticks. He's not going to line up over him and cover him. So you got to do what they did in Tampa. Keep everything under. Why do you think Raheem Morris is such a good coordinator with the Rams? They don't have linebackers in there. They keep everything underneath them. That's why when Jalen Ramsey was getting beat deep, it went against the entire Tampa 2 philosophy. I think Sean Desai, in my opinion, has to run a variation of that Tampa 2. You got the corners to do it. You got the corners. The Bucs had the corners with Rondé and them guys. Look at the components that they had in Tampa. They had corner. And look, I'm not saying you're going to have the Bucs defense, and I'm not saying anybody in NFL will ever have a team like the Ravens or the Bucs defense. I'm not saying that, but a philosophy has to be there. They had the corners. They had one hard-hitting safety. They had backers that could cover backs and tight ends, and they had a front seven that got after people. That's the same philosophy Philly had last year. You had linebackers that could play the run. You were limited at safety. That's why the good quarterbacks beat you, and your corners limited big play. You know, one of the things that the Eagles did really exceptionally well last year? The Eagles limited big – even in the Super Bowl, there weren't big plays against that secondary. Not deep plus 25. I can't remember, like, the Eagles getting beat on a plus 25 play. They keep everything underneath them. They got crushed in the Super Bowl in the second half on crossing routes, getting confused. Gannon playing man all of a sudden. Instead of playing the zone that he played all year, guys were running in because they were trying to pass off wideouts. You didn't have the personnel to pass off wideouts. Why? Because your backers can't cover. Okay? Your backs can't cover. So to me, with Desai, if you're going to put Nakobe Dean at the mic, you can't put him out wide. He can't play like a weak side or a strong side. He just can't. You can't have him out there in space. He'll get beat every play. He's too small. So how do you compensate for that? Put him at the mic, drop him deep, keep him more inside, and make sure your D tackles are playing lights out. If your defensive tackles are getting knocked off the ball, Nakobe Dean will look like a bust because he's not taking Landon Dickerson on or Zach Martin. They'll run his ass over. That's not going to work. He's not physically built to last. It's not ability. It's durability. He had a durability question coming out of Georgia with the shoulder. This is not a talent issue on him. It's where to see. Here's something, though, you got to really give the Eagles credit for, and I'm going to. They figured out Hassan Reddick. I'm assuming they're going to figure out how to get him on the field and put him in a winning position. See, you just can't put – I love when I hear idiots talking about, Dean's going to play great. He's at what position? If you're telling me you're going to play him as a Mike, then you got to do some different things inside the mic. If you're going to play him as Will or as a Sam Backer, not a chance. Not a chance of succeeding. Not a chance. It's not because he's not good. It's he's not physically big enough. These running backs, dude, Derrick Henry will destroy him. And see, the problem becomes this. It's not that he can't cover Derrick Henry, but he's got to cover Derrick Henry every week or a tight end every week. After a while, you get worn out and worn down. And then before you know it, you're not on the field. If they put him in poor positions, he won't last a year because he's not physically built that way. Okay? Dude, when you watch him and you put him on the field, he's a little tiny dude. I mean, I think your corners are bigger. So, with and he's not built. Don't go like this. Well, Sam Mills was little. Sam Mills was built like a fire hydrant. This guy's not built like a fire hydrant. He's not. Okay? So, as a designer of a defense, once again, here becomes the importance of Matt Patricia and with Sean Desai. What are their fortes? They're designers of defenses and disguising defenses. You have to be more of that. See, last year, the Eagle front seven could line up and just kick your ass. You're not going to be able to do that yet because you don't have the experience in the personnel. You may have talent, but you don't have the experience. You see, here's the one thing Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter and Brown, Morrow, not so much Morrow, Dean. Here's the one thing that is going to be attacked by offensive coordinators. They're going to immediately attack Nakobe Dean. Do you know what you're being asked to do? Do you understand the defense? Do you understand technique? Then they're going to go after Jalen Carter on traps, influence blocks. They're going to do all that shit. They're going to give you, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get Ed Reed on. I had a conversation over the weekend with Ed. And I'll give you something that Ed Reed used to do. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this clip, and it was Peyton Manning talking about Ed Reed. There was something even on the internet that Brady had on his forearm, the Ed Reed play. Can you imagine the GOAT having your name on his call sheet, on his arm, and it says the Ed Reed play. Your name is on the GOAT's play calling sleeve. That's the respect you had for Ed Reed. Ed Reed did this. He set Peyton Manning up the week before, knowing that he was playing him the following week. You know how he did that? He had a release on a wide receiver coming down the middle. He automatically made a wheel turn, and it's because he knew Manning was going backside to Wayne. He knew it because that's his read. And you could see Manning walking off the field going, fuck, man. He set me up. Brady and Belichick saw that, and Belichick said, it's the greatest play I've ever seen a player make on a field, that he set Peyton Manning up the week before knowing Manning would do that. That's the kind of knowledge that those NFL guys have that play in that league. He set him up in a Colts game knowing he was playing Brady the next week. So when they saw it on film, Brady goes, he set him up. Look at that. And you could see Manning walking off the field going, fuck, he set me up. He had set Brady up a week prior to that. That is the difference between that guy and a guy like Brown who has no idea what he's facing. Those guys are so gifted. So gifted at knowledge, technique. You imagine that? Ed had set up Peyton Manning the week before because he had Manning and Brady in consecutive weeks. He set him up the week before in the Jets game. And Manning just walked off the field going, shit, this guy, man. He knew where I was going with it. You imagine being a player like Ed Reed that dictated and made Peyton Manning throw the ball where you wanted to, and you got an interception, you took it the other way. That's a gift. When you're that great, you're thinking 5 games down the line, and you don't beat Ed Reed. That's unbelievable. You see the game. I think Jalen's becoming that kind of guy. There's certain guys that just see the freaking game. And there's Lawrence Taylor, savants. I mean, so you're working your next 5 weeks, and you're setting all of your quarterbacks up. Dude, just getting drafted and getting the position to play safety or linebacker. All the things that Nakobe Dean has to know. And playing Mike linebacker in the NFL, you got to know all that shit. You got to know all of that. But yeah, I say this about Ed Reed. Ed's the greatest safety that's ever lived in college and pro, and that includes Ronnie Lott. Plus, he was a special teams maniac. I mean, I've never seen a player like that dominate college and pro like that. Special teams, safety position. How many pick sixes did he have? I mean, doesn't he have the record for the most yards in a pick six? He took, I think 2 back, 109. The guy's a freak show, man. He's the greatest cane I've ever seen. Unbelievable. Birds, I know. Unfulfilled destiny, though, with Sean. Yeah, better than Rod Woodson. Absolutely. More accomplished. Just look the resume up. I'm not debating that. I don't have to, really. Sean Taylor, Birds, is the Jerome Brown of DBs. Unfulfilled destiny. It's a shame what those two guys might have done if they had fulfilled their destinies. Okay, because Jerome would have been in Canton too. Okay, Jerome and Sean Taylor would have been football players that went to Canton. I would say this, I don't know, man. Ed was a hell of a hitter too. He was a hell of a hitter too. Watch him knock out that guy from the Colts on that punt return. You got Ray Lewis screaming on the sidelines. You got to watch it. But Sean Taylor knocking that guy out in the Pro Bowl because he was talking shit. You got to watch that one too, man. Okay, you got to watch. You got to watch him too. All right, I got to take a timeout because I passed my post here. I got to take a timeout. Don't forget, Philly 500 is going to join us in hour number 3 at 5:30. Keep it here on the National Football Show.